Welcome back to another video. At least I hope you're back. Today for you I have Hwang Dongsoo, hentai 2. Oh, well, anyway, this guy is kinda decent. People hate him because of story reasons, but he's pretty good in the game, right? Like, as a character. So yeah, let me get into it. First of all, disclaimer, right? If you just want to see the runs, you can see the runs towards the end of the video in the is it worth it section. I have some comparisons between kind of my other damage dealers. Not really comparisons, just runs in which it kind of reflects. You'll see, you'll see. And yeah, other than that, let me get into the skill. So this fucking guy, right? So honestly, to start with, right, I'll probably just start with his basic attacks, right, because this literally has nothing for it, right? Spoiler alert, this guy is actually more of a basic skill abuser than an attacker, so his basic attack is really not important. His core attack is a different situation. His core attack actually works kind of with his passive. So his passive, right, it's an interesting one because it's a stacking passive, right? There's a lot of shit going on here. It goes up to 5 times. In game you're only gonna see up to 4 times because the 5th stack is actually the impulsive revenge one. So this one, simple enough. Every stack just gives you 3% increased defense. It goes up to 5, well, it's kind of 4, and then the last stack is impulsive revenge. When this triggers, 24% increased defense, you get a shield for 12% of the defense, and you get like a double 2x damage on your this skill scavenge. I know it doesn't track, but because it's called greed scavenge here and it's scavenge here, right? Some sort of typo, I guess. I don't fucking understand it either. Yeah, he is pretty interesting in other ways, because while he creates a shield with this skill, right, for example with his Q skill, right, he strips shields, which is kind of wild. I did forget to mention one thing about his passive, right, is the fact that this shit that they say that after using skills after being hit, so the skills here are his core skill, his urge to kill, so his storm skill, right, that strips shields, and his QTE. This doesn't fucking matter. You get the stacks just by getting hit. So you get hit 5 times essentially, and this shit procs. So in some fights, right, you basically have a full uptime for this skill. I feel like that might be a bug. It might be a mistypo here in the passive somewhere. Don't really understand it, but just keep in mind this: you don't really have to necessarily play around this, right? You just spam skills and you're gonna be proccing impulsive range anyway. I don't fucking I lost my train of thought, but I think I discussed this skill is kind of like a charge skill, right? It's weird because you charge it up and then you slam. It's honestly your highest damage skill aside from your ultimate, really. Like, this is the one you use for most damage. It hits actually pretty fucking hard, to be honest, but it doesn't do anything else really other than hit hard. And the fact that the passive kind of just doubles the damage is really good, but this is not always up, so keep that in mind. His support skill, I'll be honest, it's one of the better support skills in the game. Well, I say that, right, for an SSR, right, this is kind of expected level of quality. The damage, decent, nothing to cry home about or whatever. The big things are the fact that it's an immobilized skill, so in some situations it can be kind of clutch to stop the enemies from moving. And the bigger one is the shields, right? So all the annoying golems, all the other shit, right, it just removes it. It's the white bar that goes over the HP, not the yellow gauge bar. Don't mix those up. And lastly, his ultimate, kinda, he just punches the fucking air multiple times, right? Nothing much to discuss about it. It just has very fucking decent damage. That's kinda it. So let me get into his gearing options, okay? So for his armor, right, honestly, he's kind of weird. He doesn't really have cut straight options. There's kind of one option that I really like, and surprisingly, it's not the one I picked. The one that I really like is going the Palace Guards. I know, right? What the fuck? Somebody uses this set? The reason for that is because this kind of works with him because he grants himself a shield, right? If you're utilizing his passive, which you should, this 4-set effect will kind of always proc, and then you're just gonna get a 10% damage boost. The shield increase, also pretty fucking big when you think about it, right? Now, I didn't go for it. The reason why I didn't go for it is because I didn't really actually have good ones, right? Like, I didn't have good gear to go on this. So I just went with a crit set. I wanted to kind of try him as a, as a crit build. The recommended is obviously defense penetration, right? Defense penetration kind of actually works very good if he is advancement 5, but that's besides the point because none of us have that. Anyway, kind of just scale for defense, right? I tried crit damage, right? It wasn't the best, but it did the job, right? So I went with this crit set. Like, I tried to get crit on everything, right? The reason why these are plus 20, right? Because I tried to do crit rate rolls. I did not get lucky. I got scammed. I ended up with 45% crit rate here, which is not optimal. Disgusting. Yak, like, get something else. Aside from those two options, other options are all kind of mid, right? Acquisition could work, right? But it's a weird one, right? Like, it doesn't give you too much. Attack one, right? The attack does nothing for you, but the defense ignoring effect is pretty fucking nice. The HP set also kind of mid, like, it's like it doesn't really give you anything from the set itself. So if you have good like substats on them, pretty decent. Break set, the 4 set doesn't even work on him because he's not a breaker. Now this set, right, it could work under certain conditions. That condition being if he is in a team that boosts bar acquisition. So like, for example, if he's in a party with Park Hejin, about which one I did video last time. Other than that, like, this one is kind of meme. You're not auto attack on him, and the core attack, right, it's gonna stack from your abilities anyway, so don't use the Dragon's Knight. Next, accessories, right? Accessories are an interesting one, right? Because like in my case, I built him for crit, so I could go, Red-Eyed and Beast, but it's kind of not necessarily that good because he's a defense scaler. So attack doesn't really do too much for him. Aquamarine obviously doesn't make sense, because he's kind of, a damage dealer. So we're kind of left with 3 sets. That's Skeleton, Behemoth, and Viridescent. Viridescent, it could work, but if you bring him into a longer fight, I feel like you're gonna run out of mana real quick. But it's pretty good because he's a skill abuser, right? So this combination could really work well. Behemoth, right? Behemoth is just like, you just get rewarded for existing. You do damage and then eventually it procs, right? Skeleton, I tried Skeleton, right? It could work, right? But it's very problematic because you need to go down to 70%. I thought because of his passive, it might be consistent, right? But in some of the higher level content, it doesn't, like, you don't want to take hits because, a lot of the time you're just gonna die and not hit at 70%. So it's kind of weird. It works, but not quite. It requires some play around, Now, the weapon to use on him, right? So, I'll be honest. Well, not I'll be honest. Most of the people that if you're still considering to build him and you haven't built him, most likely you don't have this, right? Would I recommend getting it? Only if you're seriously fucking invested into building him, right? Otherwise, it's not worth it because this guy is not the SSR character that, will make all your dreams fucking come true, right? He's not gonna, take you to dinner and shit. Like, this guy is like, his SSR is just like for min-maxing pretty much. Like, it does a lot of damage. It's really fucking good. But you're better off just running the hatchets. The steel axe or the hatchet, right? Whichever you have, whichever you can spare, right? Use one of those. they work well, right? You do end up using his core attack quite a bit, right? Every time, like when your skills are on cooldown, you end up auto attacking, right? Most of the time the core attack does stack up and shit like that, right? So it's not bad. But obviously, if you really want to min-max him, you go for his SSR. I went for it because, you know, I wanted to make a video on him, and it would have been disingenuous to make it without it. So, you know, it's good. Like, it just basically increases his damage. It's kind of it. But yeah, you could, if you don't have, like, obviously, if you don't have it, right, just use the axes. The axes are good. Now, his advancements, right, not much to talk about here. If you don't have them, right, he's still worth it without the advancements, kinda. Well, his advancements, 2 are really big, and that's the first one, and the third one, like, those are really big. They kind of, like, give you the biggest fucking increases. The other ones, decent, right, but not too realistic to get them, and also that, like, for how hard it is to get them, not really that worth it, you know? So, you know, if you have one +3 or just one, you know, like, it's good. Now, do I think that he's worth it, right? I'll be honest, if you have him, right, and you're like, oh shit, I need a damage dealer that I can do most content with, right? Build him. Like, he really fucking does damage. Like, if I compare him to my Beast Bayek, right, and my Choi, right, I'll be honest, he's on the same level. You know, it's just really kind of different stuff that they do, but he feels on the same level as them. Their power is pretty much the same on all of them, right? He's not the best SSR out there, right? So don't put him in your rate up, right? If you do get him randomly by losing 50-50s, right, then you get him, but otherwise don't really, you know, bother specifically pulling for him. He's not, you know, worth that much. You're also, as far as his weapon is concerned, you're better off crafting weapons for Seo or Emma, right? Because those two carry you in wider variety of content. So, you know, that's just something to keep in mind. Also, the runs that you're seeing on the screen right now, right? It's not the best showcase, right? Because in those, he looks very equal to the other two guys. But I'll put it this way, right? In both of his runs, in both Cerberus and Spider, I fucked up. In Cerberus, I fucked up applying the debuff from the healer, like the 5% extra damage. I missed every one of those. On where in Bayek's run, right, I hit every one of those. So Bayek had kind of a 5% advantage there. And in Spider, right, I fucked up because I used his ultimate as the Spider was going for a heal. So I basically just completely lost one ultimate's damage. That's why the runs look quite so equal. Technically, he's a little bit ahead of both of them. But, I mean, he is technically more well-built as far as stats go. So, yeah, if the runs are still running, right, enjoy those. But I'm gonna go fuck off into a corner and cry or something. I don't know. I like crying. It's like my favorite pastime activity. It's a hobby of mine at this point. See ya.
Cheers,